Welcome to Mecum Presents On the Move, brought to you by State Farm. It's the show geared toward keeping you up to speed with the latest auto news, event coverage, and expert industry insight. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Avery and John Kraman.
Hey, and welcome to another On the Move. I'm Matt Avery, and joining me is co-host John Kraman, lead TV commentator for Mecum Auctions on NBCSN. John, we have such a special show today. Starting with in segment 2, we are checking back in with friend Chris Theodore. Chris has such a special connection to not only automotive history, but one vehicle in particular, and that is the 2004 Ford Shelby Cobra concept, codenamed Daisy, that recently sold at Mecum's Monterey auction for $2.64 million. And we are circling back because we want to hear from Chris, his roller coaster of emotions, and we also have a special little bit of a tease on the future plans for Daisy and where it will be headed in the months ahead. And then in segment 3, we are also keeping our eyes on the horizon, starting to think about Mecum's Dallas auction, which will be taking place very soon. We've got a special auction spotlight on all things Mecum Dallas. And John, the fun doesn't stop there because Mecum is rolling forward with October takeover with not one, not two, but 3 auctions taking place.
Yeah, unprecedented, Matt. Going to hit October in a big way. Las Vegas, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and of course Chicago, Schaumburg. Now let me tell you why I think this is a really good idea, and hats off to the Mecum team for having the vision to do this. The market for collector cars right now is ultra strong. In fact, it's at an all-time high. So by having these auctions, it gives sellers the opportunity to bring their cars to market during a very high interest level. And then on the other hand, from a buyer standpoint, from the collectors, it's also bringing cars that may not normally be on the market to our auctions. So it's kind of a win-win for both parties. Obviously, as we get closer to that, we'll provide more information, but it will be in October for the record books. Now, you, my friend, have been on the road a bit, and you've attended a couple of events recently.
Yeah, well, John, our show is called On the Move, and for good reason, because you and I do stay busy attending a lot of the other top-tier automotive events. And yeah, 2 recently that I was able to take part in, starting with the Geneva Concours de Elegance. It's a great event, John, that takes place not too far from where you and I are headquartered here in the Midwest, in the town of Geneva, Illinois, about 40 miles west of Chicago. This year, it was another fantastic event. They closed the downtown streets, and they just do such a wonderful job of presenting some really unique vehicles. One of my favorite spotlights was actually a special display of vehicles that had been made in the Chicago area, including they had a Tucker on display, a wonderful car with a great story. Those were really rare to see, so it was really neat to see that out. And then really on the other end of the spectrum, John, I also headed down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for the Great Smoky Mountain Jeep invasion, and man, oh man, oh man, Jeeps literally take over the town. There's somewhere in the ballpark of around 12 to 14,000 Jeeps that descend on the town for that, and it really is a celebration of the model, John, because you see the owners able to really express themselves through their Jeeps. And so the show reflects that, and it's a very robust expo where a lot of manufacturers and part suppliers are on site showing their wares. And this runs everything from hardcore off-road suspension components to some of the more cosmetic things. But one thing remains the same, is that the passion for Jeep is red hot right now. Now, John, I'm not the only one on the road. You too, my friend, have been traveling, and you got to check out one of your favorite events, and that's an All Pontiac Show in Pennsylvania. What was going on there?
Yep, Landisville, Pennsylvania. This show was put on by the Susquehanna Valley GTO Club. Our friends Mike Geddes and Vic Schreck very heavily involved with that. A couple of hundred great Pontiacs on display out there, Matt. It was a great show, and noteworthy that this is the club that put on the show that actually runs our driver team at our Harrisburg auction. And the fact that we've developed such a good relationship with those folks, they put on a fantastic car show, limiting it exclusively to Pontiacs. And I have to say a shout out to the Best of Show winner was actually a typically forgotten Pontiac. It was a 1974 Pontiac GTO based, of course, on the Chevy Nova. It was yellow with a really cool factory plaid interior. And a lot of folks were just really happy to see something that you don't see very often. So congratulations to our friends at Susquehanna Valley GTO Club for another successful event.
Well, John, let's take a look at some car news, and starting with the announcement from Acura that the iconic or legendary Integra is coming back for the 2023 model year. And unfortunately, John, that's about all we know.
Right. Yeah, a lot of anticipation and predictions on what that car might be, Matt, whether it's going to be, will it be a hybrid? Will it be electric? Will it be a conventional ICE engine? We don't know, but that is truly in the Japanese automobile market. I have to say that the that nameplate, the Integra nameplate, that ranks as being at the top of the list for one of those storied nameplates that is probably due for a return.
Well, and the other thing we don't know, which is causing a lot of excitement, is will it be a 2-door or a 4-door?
Right.
Because right now in the Acura lineup, the only 2-door they have is, of course, the very high-end NSX, and there's some rumors out there. Would there be room in the lineup for more of an entry-level 2-door sports car? Because we are seeing that across the board. We've talked about the BRZ, we've got Supra, we've got a bunch of these new players, Nissan Z.
Yeah.
Maybe now is the time for a more affordable, sporty 2-door from Acura. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait and see. Now, something that we don't have to wait for is, and something that you definitely will see, and that is a brand new color that Jeep is offering on the Wrangler for the 2021 model year, and they are calling it Tuscadero paint, that's what's called. They're calling it, and it's a chromatic magenta color, and the name throws back to the character on Happy Days, played by Roz Kelly, who played Carol Pinky Tuscadero. And John, it is bright and it is vibrant, and it is only going to be offered through November for a $395 charge. Now, I wanted to mention this as part of our car news, John, because having just come from one of the largest Jeep events, I gotta say, I think this type of stuff is exactly what that crowd wants, because at first glance you think, well, it's a special paint color, but if that's your outlook, you really don't understand the passion that runs for these vehicles, and these owners are so excited for any of these little tweaks. And I gotta say, looking over the thousands of Jeeps, I did see several pink ones on site that either were vinyl wrapped or painted. So now that they can get it from the factory, I think a lot of customers are going to go for it.
Yeah, I'd be anxious to see one of those on the street. Hey, I had a chance to see the very first Hyundai Santa Cruz. That is the brand new emerging, whether you want to call it a subcompact or a compact pickup truck. Currently only 2 really entries in that field. The upcoming Ford Maverick, which has not been which has not hit the streets yet. Over 100,000 orders have been taken for that, by the way. But I did have a chance to see my very first Santa Cruz. It happened to be on a transporter, and I happened to be driving by it while it was parked. So I stopped and looked around it. Very, very nice, clean lines. And it's going to be fun to see how this low price, they're going to be base price in the $20,000-ish range, how that sort of plays out as we move forward. And speaking of seeing for the first time, Matt, I did see a picture of a 2-door, current generation, brand new Ford Bronco. I sent the picture to you. It was blue, that had a throwback style 70s, 80s aluminum alloy wheel with white letter tires. And I sent that photo to you, and I have to say, I had to look at the picture 2 or 3 times. It was a 2-door Bronco to see if it was a current or a vintage Bronco. What was your thoughts on that picture I sent?
I certainly didn't have the same level of excitement that you did. I thought it was
Okay.
a neat touch. My prediction is that as soon as these Broncos, both in 2- and 4-door versions, get into the hands of customers, it will be no time at all before modifications are being made.
Right.
I know Ford has a very robust catalog of parts that they are offering, but as we move into the fall season, and as you and I continue to stay out at top events, you and I have plans to go to the SEMA show in Las Vegas. My prediction is that the Bronco will be the vehicle of choice across the board for those aftermarket companies to display their wares. So if you're excited at seeing that one, I think hold on, my friend, because in just a few weeks, we will be seeing Bronco overload when it comes to custom versions.
We've got an important date to talk about, Matt. Mark it on your calendars, October 26th of this year. This is going to be the reveal for the 2023 Corvette Z06. A lot of speculation about exactly what it's going to be. We'll find out then. But something new has emerged, Matt, recently in the past couple of weeks. And I keep a pretty close eye out for C8 News. And that is what's been loosely referred to as the E-Ray. And it's speculated that this will be a standard 490 or 495 horsepower LT2 engine with an electric motor up in the front, driving the front wheels for all-wheel drive, putting out maybe a combined around 600 horsepower. Testing of this car has thought to have been seen and can be identified from the Z06s that are out there being tested in camouflage by the exhaust outlet location. We know the Z06s are going to have 4 center-mounted quad exhausts, very much like the C7s had. And of course, we know the standard C8 has got twin pipes on either side of the car. So as we see these spy photos of these wide-body camouflage C8s, I think we can guess at this point that it'll be the Z06 out being tested with those quad exhausts, and maybe with this hybrid version of the Corvette with the outer placement. Don't know anything official yet. Don't know if even they're going to make that announcement on that October 26th date, but we'll be paying attention to it. In the meantime, if you want a C8 and you don't want to wait, we've got 3 coming to the Dallas auction.
Mecum Auctions is proud to bring you On the Move with Matt Avery and John Kraman. For more on the world of collector cars, head over to mecum.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Hey, Matt, with us today is our friend Chris Theodore, the former Ford VP of Product Development, and most notably, the seller of what has been referred to as the last Shelby Cobra, codenamed Daisy, of course, the concept car from the mid-2000s. It did sell at Mecum Monterey as lot number S105 for $2.64 million. Now, if we remember, our podcast episode number 62, we actually sat down with Chris during the reveal of the car at our Indy auction that it was going to be selling at Monterey, and that's where the excitement and the buzz began. So I'm going to ask Chris the very, very first question. Chris, take us back to the reveal of the car, the decision that the car is definitely going to be for sale. It's going to go to Mecum Monterey. It is now Indy time. How are you feeling?
Well, I'd never been. I'd watched Mecum auctions many, many times, but on recommendations of friends, when it came time to sell Daisy, Mecum was the place to go. And we went down, my wife and I drove down to Indy, and there was the car sitting on the stand with every other auction car rolling past it. And then we did the podcast with you guys, and we did with Bill. We did some video as the action was going on. And so it was a great experience there, seeing a lot of old friends and seeing a lot of people. Many people remembered the car, but it wasn't top of mind for a long period of time. And others had never seen it before and, really wondered what it was. And so it was a great experience out there just watching the auction. And honestly, the way Mecum people just handled everything. Everybody I dealt with was wonderful. And then from then on, we worked with you and we worked with Ben and others to do videos, to promote the vehicle, to get the word out there. There must have been, I was keeping track for a while, over 100 articles written, people coming out to test the car, drive the car, all leading up to Monterey, which was an incredible event unto its own. So it was a great start, and it was 3 months of high anticipation.
Well, if we go back to your career with Ford Motor Company's VP of Product Development, you had a big part of the creation, the development, the crafting of this car. Right along with you was, of course, Carroll Shelby. Many years later, you actually acquired the car and had the car mechanically brought up to speed so it was operational again. The bonding that you had with this car must have been at a very high level. The decision to sell the car, how difficult was that?
Well, it's in one way, it's very difficult because, emotionally, I'm connected forever to this car. It was a great project. It was probably the most fun I ever had working on a car, particularly with Shelby. And as time developed, Shelby and I became very, very close friends. We'd first met each other working on the Viper program. So emotionally, I'm attached to it. But when you have a 101, the last Shelby Cobra, it's kind of an enormous responsibility. I'd take the car out and drive it on the track once in a while at the M1 Concours. I did get a title for the road, but I'm just too scared to drive it on the road. You never know what can happen, and it's an irreplaceable vehicle. And I'd done what I wanted to do is, first of all, make the car drivable, which wasn't when I acquired it. and we got it road legal, and so that somebody could enjoy it. And I got to write a book about, it was a fantasy ending to my book about my times with Carol Shelby. So emotionally I was very attached, but the responsibility of owning and driving an irreplaceable vehicle was a bit much. So I was hoping and praying for a wonderful new owner that would, understand the vehicle, show the vehicle, drive the vehicle. And so I had apprehension, but it was time.
Well, all that came to a head when the car rolled across the Mecum Monterey auction block. And Chris, you shared the day with some family and friends. Fill us in, who was there taking part to cheer you on? And then also give us an idea of what kind of emotions you were experiencing.
Well, it was, the auction couldn't come soon enough. Obviously my wife joined me. All my friends were watching live. My cousin and his girlfriend from Decatur, Illinois, came down to join us. Thank God, because they helped keep our emotions, my wife and our emotions, in check. And just displaying the car and talking to people and hearing the buzz and trying to figure out who would be interested and who wouldn't led to a whole lot of excitement and anticipation. Leading up to it the night before, my wife's probably not ashamed to say she had a little meltdown. What if it doesn't make reserves? What are you going to do? That got me on edge, of course, the next morning. The next day, talking to people, and everybody, buyers play their cards very close to the vest. I knew there were interested parties out there, but really didn't know what was going to happen. And then just waiting for the magic moment, and the cars under the tent, all the premier cars, rolling out one at a time and waiting. And finally, it was my turn to jump in the car. And I got to tell you, I was so nervous driving out there through the crowd, and starting and stopping, and almost forgetting which switch to turn on first. It was. My heart was pounding driving it up there and opening the hood, and then. I didn't even hear the auction announcement. I had to rewatch the video later, but it was fantastic. And then, quite frankly, the crowd went wild, and it's just hard to believe.
Chris, I remember vividly a conversation that you and I had in regard to forecasting the value of this car and where the reserve was set. The published auction estimate was $1.5 to $2 million, and I remember you and I discussing that and trying to figure out how you set the bar on a value of a vehicle that has virtually no comparables. It's the only one in the world. It's the only one that will ever be. And I'm just wondering how comfortable were you initially with that $1.5 to $2 million published auction estimate?
Well, I thought it was reasonable. As you and I discussed, the vehicle is a unicorn. It's one of one, so there are no comps, just like in real estate. Obviously, I paid, I mortgaged both houses to buy the car, and I put a lot of money into getting it drivable. So I was comfortable with the estimate and the reserve. But then, as the date approaches, you wonder, because the car could have gone for anywhere from $500,000 to $5 million. It's that type of vehicle. You've got to find the right people out there, and there were at least 5 serious bidders when the auction went on, and 4 of them I know, and it was just it was exciting to see all the enthusiasm go on as the numbers just ran up. So I was comfortable, but still nervous. I was just cautiously optimistic, but plan for the worst. So.
From the time that you drove that car up onto the auction block till the time that the hammer fell was approximately 2 minutes and 46 seconds, and that video can be seen at the Mecum YouTube, and it is one of the most exciting in Mecum history. At what point did you realize that not only was the vehicle going to sell, but it was going to go past the auction estimate?
Well, it's kind of interesting. It ran up that there's 30 seconds of introduction if you watch the video. And then once the bidding started, it ran up very fast. As it got towards the reserve, I think it ran up to 1.4, and Frank came down, as he always does, and he says, do you want to lift the reserve? And as I'm about to say no, it goes 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 before Frank can even raise his hand. And then it just kept going, and it just ran up like a rocket. And then you see me go crazy in the video, and my wife looking like, what's going on? She was just in shock, and then elation, and then as the car went out, we followed the car out, and I mean the crowd was standing. They lined the car, the path all the way out into the grounds. Everybody giving us high fives. It was just a fascinating, exciting moment. And as soon as it started going like 1.4, obviously I said, "Holy cow! This is going to happen." And boy, it did. It just kept going. So I couldn't be happier.
Well, Chris, your story in connection to Daisy just continues to astound and amaze, because even after the car crosses the block and it is no longer in your possession, come to find out the new owner is a close personal friend, and they've already given you a hint of the exciting days ahead for Daisy. What can you share with us so far about the future for this very special Cobra?
Well, I have to say the best part, and obviously probably the two most exciting times I've had were one, buying Daisy, and then this part of selling Daisy. Obviously the money is exciting, but I always worried about who the new owner would be. I bought Daisy because I didn't want the car I'd worked on with Carol collecting dust, non-drivable. And to sell the car, I didn't want it going out of the country. Most of the Shelby enthusiasts are right here. I wanted an owner that appreciated the history of the car and would show it and display it. And so after my heart rate came down, I stayed outside the auction area for about 15 minutes. I walked back to the tent where the car was on display, and a dear friend of mine who'd stopped by to say hello that morning, I've known for over 20 years, and his family for 20 years. And of course the Mecum people were standing around the car too. And as I walked back in, still elated, I say, "Who bought the car?" And this dear friend was sitting in Daisy, turns around with a big smile, and got out of the car, and I knew it was him. We started jumping up and down, hugging each other. I'm sure there's some videos out there. It was crazy, but I can't possibly think of a better new owner, because I know he's going to show the car. It's going to be on display at a museum collection that is publicly accessible, and I know he's going to drive the car, and that's exactly what I was hoping for. Can't think of a better custodian or caretaker of this significant piece of history, Shelby history. And I got to tell you, all the team members were so excited too. I got so many notes, and many of the people involved with the car volunteered to help the new owner keep Daisy running forever in tip-top shape. So it's just another fairy tale ending to a long, long story.
Chris, when do you think the official reveal on who the new owner is going to be occurring?
Well, I think he's hoping to do it in the next couple of weeks. He's trying to figure out how exactly to announce it, and everybody will be pleased. I can say that much, and he's just as excited as me, and I'm going to go out and visit him in the next couple of weeks too. So hopefully before then, the announcement will be made.
Well, I think it's safe to say the future of Daisy is very bright, and John and I share in your elation and excitement, Chris, during this recent experience, and are just so thrilled with how it turned out for you. Now, the question that I have is, what's next for you, Chris? You are such a passionate automotive enthusiast, and with this burden of being the caretaker of Daisy, because you've talked about that, about the tremendous weight of stewarding such a precious piece of automotive history, with that off your shoulders and the torch passed to another enthusiast, when it comes to vehicles, what's next for you?
Well, I think, as you guys probably know a little bit, part of the reason, which I forgot to mention, is that before I ever dreamed that I would own Daisy, Carol and I had worked on another project called Super Snake 2. And Carol gave me a carbon fiber 427 Cobra body. He had encouraged me to patent a chassis design that I'd come up with. And Ford gave me a Ford GT to field strip for parts and motor and transaxle. And this car, Super Snake 2, and kind of a reflection on the one and only Super Snake that still exists, we started to build it. And when I bought Daisy, I didn't have the resources to carry on 2 burdens at once. So I suspended that project. And so now I'm back working on Super Snake 2, hope to get it done within the next year. And that'll be a car that obviously I'm going to show off and give to the magazines to have fun with. But it's a car that I won't be afraid to drive on the street and have a lot of fun with. So I get to finish off another important project in my mind without the burden of potentially wrecking a unique piece of automotive history. So I'm excited to get that done.
Chris, you know, it's the cars that brings us together, but it's the people and the relationships that keeps it going. And I just have to say, you are such a delight. It has been our honor and our pleasure to work with you on this project, paying off in such a successful way for everybody involved. And we could not be happier for you and your family as you move forward. And please keep in touch.
I will. And I mean, thank you guys. And I got to thank the entire Mecum team. It was just such a seamless, experience. Harrowing, exciting, nerve-wracking, but I couldn't. It was just a wonderful experience. I'm so happy. Like I said, another fairy tale ending. It was fantastic, and I look forward to working with you guys and seeing you guys again.
Don't adjust that dial. On the Move, we'll be right back. Our program is proudly presented by Mecum Auctions, the world's largest collector car auctions. Now back to Matt and John.
Well, John, as we turn our attention from Mecum's success in Monterey, let's talk about the next live auction, and that will be when Mecum heads to Dallas, September 8th through the 11th, and there's already so much buzz, a lot of excitement, and I know one of the questions that a lot of people have, John, how can they tune in and catch all of the television coverage?
Yep, couple of choices for television, Matt. Our traditional NBCSN coverage, of course, and then we will also be live in real time on Peacock TV. That will be the second time that we have added the choice of being on Peacock TV as well. So really looking forward to plenty of television coverage on this big upcoming Dallas auction.
And how many cars will be crossing the block?
You know, the original target, Matt, was for 1,000 cars. They've blown past that. So will there be 11 or 1,200 cars? I would guess yes. 4 big days, September 8th through the 11th. And that convention center, the Kay Bailey Convention Center that you mentioned, is one of our most spectacular facilities. It is everything is indoors and undercover and very comfortable, and Dallas is really looking forward to having Mecum back this year. I can tell you that. A lot of buzz about this auction.
Well, we've got 6 collections in total. And John, I want to get your predictions because we've seen a red-hot collector car market. Traditionally, Texas is very strong on trucks and off-road vehicles, but we've also seen a big surge in the appeal of sports and performance cars. What are your thoughts about some of the top sellers?
Yeah, I think what I'm going to see, what I'm going to be having my personal eye on, Matt, is the high percentage of what might be considered to be performance cars, whether they be original muscle cars from the golden era, contemporary performance cars, a lot of Corvettes as well. Kind of a nice traditional mixture of Mecum inventory, but really very heavy on high quality muscle. I've actually selected a car. I'm curious to hear what yours is as well, that I'm going to be keeping my eye on. It could be one of my favorites, and it's lot number S138. That's a 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 429 in that wild grabber green color, and it is a high-end restoration. In fact, it's earned the MCA, that's Mustang Club of America, trailered Concours Gold. How about you, man?
Well, you know, I have a soft spot for the special vehicles created through Chevrolet's COPO program, having researched that for years. I love any car that has COPO attached to it, and one of our main attractions is a 1969 Chevrolet Camaro that was processed through the COPO system, meaning that it has been equipped with an iron block L72 427 cubic inch V8, John. These cars are legendary and for good reason, because they were backdoor. They were not advertised. They were not supposed to be built, but thankfully a couple dealers were able to work with Chevrolet to get these purpose-built race cars created. And this one is really sharp, painted in Daytona yellow. That's something you and I were talking about before we got on the air, is that what a striking color to have this in. And another special element of this story is that this vehicle has been in the care of the same family for the last 45 years. So a really nice special touch, and I will certainly be keeping my eyes on this and fully expect it to go into well six-figure territory.
You've been listening to Mecum Presents On the Move, brought to you by State Farm. For more information, visit mecum.com. And join us again next time as we take you inside the world of muscle and collector cars and more.